Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy.
To answer it. In 1992, his research was the first to show that eating nuts protects against heart disease. Then he built the largest ongoing study of vegetarians in the world. 96,469 Seventh-day Adventists, recruited between 2002 and 2007, tracked for years as they went about their ordinary lives in Loma Linda. His team recorded what they ate, tracked who died and from what, and followed the numbers wherever they led. Fraser is a tall, quiet, methodical man who has been a Seventh-day Adventist his entire life. He does not eat meat. He eats nuts every day. He drinks 5 or more glasses of water. He eats his lightest meal in the evening and his largest meal at midday. He has done this for decades, in the same city where his research subjects live, practicing the same habits he studies. His results changed what we know about protein, aging, and the biology of death. Adventist vegetarian men live 9.5 years longer than average Californians. Vegetarian women live 6.1 years longer. Those numbers do not come from one study. They come from 2 generations of data. The Adventist Health Study 1, tracking 34,000 people across 12 years, and the Adventist Health Study 2, the largest of its kind, published in JAMA Internal Medicine in 2013. And the finding is not a rounding error. It is 9.5 years. Not 9, not about 10, 9.5. Today, Fraser's research and the 3 biological mechanisms it uncovered will explain exactly why. Write this down. Here is the argument you will hear when you mention Loma Linda to anyone who has read about it. Those people live long because they do not smoke, do not drink, go to church, and have a strong community. It has nothing to do with meat. It sounds reasonable. It is wrong, and the data makes it possible to show exactly why. The AHS-2 study adjusted for smoking status, alcohol consumption, physical activity level, body mass index, and socioeconomic factors. The researchers controlled for all of it. The dietary differences in mortality between vegetarians and non-vegetarians persisted after every adjustment. Lifestyle factors explain some of the Adventist longevity advantage, but they do not explain all of it, and they do not explain the gap between vegetarian Adventists and non-vegetarian Adventists. That last part is the critical piece. Within the Adventist community, vegetarians outlive non-vegetarians. Same religion, same no-smoking culture, same church community, same social support. The single variable that explains the extra years is diet. All Adventists, including those who eat meat, already live longer than average Americans. Adventist men in general live 7.3 years longer. Adventist women live 4.4 years longer. The religion, the lifestyle, the community, those account for those years. But the vegetarian Adventists add another 2+ years on top of that. The extra 9.5 for men, the extra 6.1 for women. The diet-specific portion of that gap sits solidly on top of everything the lifestyle already provides. The reason is biological. Fraser's research pointed toward it. 3 separate research groups then found the mechanisms, and the mechanisms changed the entire conversation about what meat actually does inside the human body. The first mechanism is something most people have never heard of. It is called TMAO. When you eat red meat, you consume a compound called L-carnitine. L-carnitine is found naturally in beef, lamb, and pork. It is part of the muscle tissue. Your gut bacteria, specifically the strains that proliferate in people who eat meat regularly, convert L-carnitine into a molecule called trimethylamine, or TMA. Your liver then oxidizes TMA into trimethylamine N-oxide, TMAO. Stanley Hazen and his team at the Cleveland Clinic published the TMAO research in Nature Medicine in 2013. What they found was not subtle. TMAO promotes atherosclerosis through multiple simultaneous pathways. It activates inflammasome signaling in arterial walls. It promotes the formation of foam cells, the arterial plaques that build up and eventually rupture. It impairs reverse cholesterol transport, the process by which the body removes excess cholesterol from the arteries, and it enhances platelet hyperreactivity, which increases the tendency for blood to clot. TMAO does not do one bad thing to the cardiovascular system. It does four. The critical finding was about who produces it and who does not. Omnivorous humans, people who eat meat regularly, produced significantly more TMAO than vegans or vegetarians after ingesting the same amount of L-carnitine. Not because of genetics, because of their gut bacteria. Meat eaters develop gut bacteria that specialize in converting L-carnitine to TMA. Vegans and vegetarians lack these bacteria, because without the consistent L-carnitine input, those bacterial populations never developed. In a clinical study of 2,595 patients undergoing cardiac evaluation, plasma L-carnitine levels predicted increased risk of cardiovascular disease, heart attack, stroke, and death, but only in patients who simultaneously had high TMAO levels. L-carnitine alone was not the risk. L-carnitine plus meat-eater gut bacteria equals TMAO equals risk. Remove the meat. The bacteria change. The TMAO drops. The cardiovascular pathway closes. The Loma Linda vegetarians produce almost none of it. Take a moment. Think about what you ate for breakfast this morning. Did it include red meat? Beef, pork, lamb, sausage, bacon? If yes, that meal was producing L-carnitine that your gut bacteria began converting within hours. This is not a reason for alarm. It is a reason to understand the mechanism before we talk about what to change. The second mechanism is IGF-1. And this is where the research gets more uncomfortable. Because IGF-1 is not just a cardiovascular story, it is a cancer story. IGF-1 stands for insulin-like growth factor 1. It is a growth hormone. Its job is to tell cells to grow and divide. In childhood and adolescence, high IGF-1 is appropriate. The body needs to build itself. In a 60-year-old, high IGF-1 acts on cells that are already fully grown. It tells them to keep dividing anyway. High IGF-1 is, in plain terms, fertilizer for abnormal cell growth. Walter Longo and his team at the University of Southern California published the definitive study in cell metabolism in 2014. They studied 6,381 American adults aged 50 and older from the NHANES 3 survey, a nationally representative sample. People aged 50 to 65 with high animal protein intake showed a 75% increase in overall mortality and a four-fold increase in cancer death risk during the 18-year follow-up period. Not a modest association. A 75% increase in dying from any cause. A four-fold increase in dying specifically from cancer. The critical finding, the one that exonerates plant protein entirely, is that these associations were abolished or substantially reduced when the protein source was plant-based. High animal protein drove the IGF-1 elevation and the mortality risk. High plant protein did not. The body processes the two differently. Vegan men have 9% lower serum IGF-1 compared to meat eaters. Vegan women have 13% lower IGF-1. In the AHS-2 data, a vegan dietary pattern was associated with a 34% reduction in risk of female-specific cancers among 69,120 female participants. That is not a rounding error either. One important nuance that Fraser and Longo both note: for people over 65, the picture changes. Once the body crosses a certain age threshold, adequate protein becomes protective against muscle loss and frailty. and the cancer-driving effect of moderate to high protein weakens. The Loma Linda protocol for someone in their late 60s or 70s is not about eliminating protein. It is about ensuring the protein comes from plants: beans, lentils, tofu, tempeh, nuts, in sufficient quantities. The research target is at least 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, from plant sources. Fraser's own daily habits reflect this. He is meticulous about plant protein. Beans at midday, walnuts every day, soy milk. He does not guess about adequacy. He spent 4 decades studying it. The third mechanism is the one Fraser himself describes as the most counterintuitive finding of his career. Not because it overturns the dietary data, but because it reveals the specific molecular pathway through which animal protein accelerates aging at the cellular level. The mechanism is called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin. It is a master regulatory protein that controls whether cells go into growth mode or maintenance mode. When mTOR is active, cells grow and divide. When mTOR is suppressed, cells shift into repair and recycling mode, a process called autophagy, where the body breaks down damaged components and rebuilds them. Autophagy is, in simplified terms, the cellular housekeeping that prevents the accumulation of damage that aging represents. Animal protein, specifically the branched-chain amino acids leucine, isoleucine, and valine found in high concentrations in meat, activates mTOR strongly. Plant protein activates it less, much less. Fraser and Longo both point to this as the molecular explanation for the cancer and mortality data. High animal protein intake keeps mTOR in growth mode. The cells keep dividing. The cellular repair systems stay quiet. The damage accumulates. David Sabatini's work on mTOR, which earned a breakthrough prize in life sciences, showed that mTOR inhibition in multiple animal models reliably extended healthy lifespan. Rapamycin, the drug that directly inhibits mTOR, is the most reliably life-extending intervention ever tested in mammals. The Loma Linda vegetarians are not taking rapamycin. They have spent decades eating a diet that suppresses mTOR gently, continuously, through the amino acid profile of their food. This is the molecular mechanism that IGF-1 alone does not fully explain. IGF-1 drives cancer risk through growth signaling. mTOR suppression explains the broader mortality and aging data. Why the vegetarian Adventists are not just dying less from cancer, but dying less from everything, more slowly, at later ages. One important honesty note here. The mTOR research in humans is still developing. Most of the longevity data comes from animal models. What we have from the Adventist studies is the outcome, 9.5 extra years, and we have the mechanism candidates. The precise contribution of mTOR suppression relative to TMAO reduction and IGF-1 modulation is not yet quantified in a single human trial. What Fraser would say, and has said in interviews, is that you do not need to understand the exact mechanism weighting to act on the direction the data consistently points. Now let me show you exactly what the longest-lived Adventists eat, and how to adapt it for your kitchen, starting this week. Fraser's data identified the specific foods that appear most consistently among the Adventists with the best longevity outcomes, not theories. Foods that appear in the dietary records of the people who lived longest in the largest vegetarian cohort study ever conducted. Walnuts. The 1992 Fraser study was the first to show that eating nuts 5 or more times per week reduced heart attack risk by 49%. A 2021 follow-up study found that 5 or more servings of walnuts per week specifically was associated with 14% lower all-cause mortality and 25% lower cardiovascular death risk, with a gain of 1.3 extra years of life expectancy. 1 ounce of walnuts, 28 grams, a small handful, 5 days per week. That is the Tier 1 starting point. Not because it is easy, but because it is the most evidence-supported single dietary action in the entire Adventist dataset. Steel-cut oatmeal at breakfast. The long-lived Adventists start the day with whole grains, not with eggs and bacon. Oats provide soluble fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, a different population from those that produce TMAO. They slow the glucose response, which regulates insulin, which affects the IGF-1 pathway. Steel-cut or rolled oats, not instant oats, because the fiber structure is more intact, with walnuts on top. With berries if you have them. Beans and lentils, daily, at the midday meal. 1 cup per day. Chickpeas, black beans, lentils, kidney beans. The specific type matters less than the habit. This was the single most consistent dietary pattern across all 5 blue zones, including Loma Linda. Legumes provide substantial plant protein without triggering the IGF-1 elevation that animal protein causes. Their amino acid profile is also the type that activates mTOR modestly rather than maximally, the difference between a gentle signal to maintain and an aggressive signal to grow. Soy milk as the dairy substitute. Adventist data showed soy milk provides bone health benefits comparable to dairy without the animal protein IGF-1 trigger. It is also the most common daily liquid for long-lived Adventists who do not consume dairy. Water, 5 or more glasses per day. Adventists in the original AHS-1 cohort who drank 5 or more glasses of water daily had significantly lower risk of fatal heart disease compared to those who drank 2 glasses or fewer. The mechanism is likely blood viscosity. More water, less thick blood, lower clotting risk. The lightest meal in the evening, eaten early. Many long-lived Adventists finish eating by 6 p.m. The evening meal is soup, fruit, or a light grain dish. The heaviest eating happens at midday. This timing pattern appears across multiple blue zones and is consistent with chronobiology research on insulin sensitivity. The body processes carbohydrates and proteins more efficiently earlier in the day. It also means mTOR, stimulated by the protein in the midday meal, has the full afternoon and evening to return to baseline before sleep, allowing the overnight repair window to run without interruption. Here is the Tier 1 protocol. 3 swaps. Keep everything else in your diet exactly the same. Swap red meat for beans or lentils 3 days per week. On Sunday, cook a pot of lentil soup or black bean chili. Use it for lunches on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. This reduces L-carnitine intake on those 3 days, which reduces TMAO production, which reduces the inflammatory and cardiovascular damage pathway. The swap must be to plant protein, not to chicken. Chicken contains similar levels of L-carnitine and choline, which also produces TMAO. The mechanism requires plant protein, not just less red meat. Eat 28 grams of walnuts, a small handful, 5 days per week. Put the bag on the counter so you see it. Eat them with breakfast, in the afternoon, before dinner. The timing is less important than the frequency. 5 days a week. Replace 1 glass of dairy milk per day with unsweetened walnuts. And fortunately, the dairy milk with sweetened somewhat use it. Replace 1 glass of dairy milk per day with unsweetened soy milk. Any brand, any time of day. This one swap, repeated daily, begins shifting the protein source ratio in your diet from animal to plant, which is what the IGF-1 and mTOR data are both measuring. That is Tier 1. 3 changes. Start this week. The mistake that cancels all of Tier 1. Replacing red meat with plant-based processed foods. Fake burgers, vegan sausages, processed meat substitutes. These products often contain high sodium levels, refined seed oils, and additive combinations that produce the same inflammatory environment the original meat was creating. The Adventists in Fraser's study did not eat plant-based processed food. They did not have it. They ate beans, whole grains, vegetables, and nuts. The processing level is the variable, not simply the animal content. Now let me tell you who Gary Fraser is as a person. Not as a researcher, as a man who has lived inside the question he studies for 4 decades. Fraser grew up in Christchurch, New Zealand. He completed his medical degree at Otago University in 1969 and his PhD in epidemiology from the University of Auckland in 1978. He has been at Loma Linda University since before the Adventist Health Study began. He directs it still. He is 78 years old as of this writing. He lives in Loma Linda. He walks. He eats the foods his data identifies as protective. He is not performing the lifestyle for research credibility. He grew up in it, before he had any data to support it. His church taught him to eat this way. His science then spent 4 decades confirming why it works. When journalists ask him what he would change about the modern American diet if he could change one thing, Fraser does not reach for a nuanced academic answer. He says, reduce the meat. Start there. Everything else is refinement. There is a scene I find myself thinking about from the Loma Linda research literature. During the early years of AHS-2 data collection, Fraser's team was processing dietary recall forms from tens of thousands of participants. The forms captured what people ate across multiple days, at each meal. The pattern that kept appearing in the longest-lived participants was not dramatic. It was repetitive. The same foods, at the same times, day after day. Oatmeal and walnuts in the morning. Beans and vegetables at midday. Something light and early in the evening. Water throughout the day. No cigarettes, no alcohol. Not because of willpower, because that was just what lunch looked like in their homes. What dinner looked like. What their mothers had cooked. What their community ate. Fraser noted in multiple interviews that the Adventist diet is not difficult to follow once it becomes habitual. The difficulty is the transition period, the weeks when you are deciding what to eat instead of simply eating what the habit dictates. Once the habit forms, the cognitive load drops to nearly zero. That transition period is what most diet interventions fail to support. They provide the destination, but not the architecture for getting there. The Adventist community provides that architecture through shared meals, church dinners, family cooking, and a cultural framework where eating beans and walnuts is the normal thing, not the unusual thing. You do not have that community unless you are in Loma Linda, but you can build the habit architecture piece by piece, starting with the 3 swaps in Tier 1. Which of the foods I just described do you already have in your kitchen right now? Walnuts, oatmeal, beans, soy milk, water? Leave it in the comments. I am genuinely curious what the starting point looks like for people watching this. Here is Tier 2. After 4 to 6 weeks of Tier 1, when the 3 swaps feel ordinary, add these. Eliminate all red and processed meat. Keep fish 1 or 2 times per week if you want it. Pesco-vegetarians in AHS-2 showed the strongest all-cause mortality reduction of any diet group, 19% lower than non-vegetarians. The fish-inclusive option is not a compromise. It is the data-best dietary pattern in the entire study. If fish is not something you eat, that is also fine. The vegan group showed the strongest cardiovascular outcomes specifically. Add legumes at every lunch. 1 cup per day, minimum. This is when the TMAO reduction accelerates, not because the microbiome shifts instantly, but because you are consistently removing the L-carnitine substrate that feeds the TMAO-producing bacteria. Fewer days with red meat input means those bacterial populations receive fewer resources. The shift is slow. It is also directional and cumulative. Increase whole grains across the day. Brown rice instead of white. Whole wheat bread instead of white. Quinoa, barley, farro. The Adventist data linked whole grain consumption with reduced colorectal cancer risk, alongside cooked green vegetables and beans. The combination, not the individual foods in isolation, drives the association. Restructure meal timing. Make lunch the largest meal of the day. Make dinner the smallest. Finish eating by 7 p.m. if possible. This single timing adjustment changes insulin sensitivity, which affects IGF-1 signaling over time, which affects the cancer pathway the Longo study identified. It also gives mTOR the full overnight window to return to baseline. Now Tier 3. This is the full Adventist vegetarian protocol. What the longest-lived participants in Fraser's study actually ate, at the frequency they actually ate it. Fully plant-based. No meat, no dairy, no eggs. This is where the 42% lower cardiovascular mortality in vegan men appears, and the 34% lower female-specific cancer risk. This is also where the protein adequacy issue becomes critical for anyone over 65. The daily template: steel-cut oatmeal with walnuts and fruit in the morning, unsweetened soy milk. At midday, the largest meal: beans or lentils with whole grains and a large mixed vegetable plate. In the evening, the lightest meal: vegetable soup or fruit or a small grain bowl, done before 7. Water throughout the day, 5 glasses minimum. The specific foods the longest-lived Adventists eat 5 or more times per week: walnuts, oatmeal, whole wheat bread, soy milk, beans, tomatoes, and an abundance of other fruits and vegetables. This is not a theoretical template. It is what the dietary records of the people in Fraser's study who lived longest actually show. For anyone over 65 following Tier 3, ensure you are eating at least 0.8 grams of plant protein per kilogram of body weight per day. Beans, lentils, tofu, tempeh, and nuts are your primary sources. Without adequate protein, the biological risk of muscle loss and frailty outweighs the cancer risk reduction. Fraser's data and Longo's nuance both point the same direction. Plants, sufficient quantity, adequate protein. The mistake that cancels Tier 3 entirely: under-eating. When people eliminate animal products without planning, they often reduce their total calorie intake significantly because plant foods are less calorie-dense. The result is muscle loss, fatigue, and often an early abandonment of the protocol. The Adventists do not eat small portions. They eat full, satisfying meals. Large bowls of beans and grains at lunch, substantial breakfasts, real food in real quantities. The dietary shift is about what, not how much. Let me tell you what to expect from this protocol, and when. Within 72 hours of eliminating red meat, your gut bacteria begin losing the L-carnitine substrate they convert into TMAO. The bacterial populations that specialized in producing TMA do not die immediately. They decline over weeks without the input they require. You will not feel this. It is happening without announcement. After your second grocery run of beans instead of meat, roughly 3 weeks in, the 3 swaps stop feeling like substitutes and start feeling like what you eat. That cognitive shift is the most important milestone, and it happens earlier than most people expect. After 90 days of consistent Tier 2 eating, the TMAO-producing bacteria have been receiving lower L-carnitine input for 3 months. The mTOR activation pattern has shifted from animal amino acid spikes to plant amino acid modulation. Neither change announces itself. Both are measurable in blood work if you run the panels. IGF-1 levels in men who have eliminated red meat and dairy for 90 days typically drop measurably in that time. The Longo team documented this in controlled interventions. The morning you make oatmeal and walnuts for breakfast, without thinking about whether you are supposed to, that morning is more important than any specific measurable metric. The centenarians in Loma Linda do not track their IGF-1 levels. They make oatmeal, they eat walnuts, they cook beans. The invisibility of the practice is the practice. One action for this week, only one. Buy a bag of walnuts and a can of black beans or lentils. Put the walnuts on the kitchen counter where you will see them tomorrow morning. Eat a handful with breakfast. On Sunday, make a pot of lentil soup large enough for 3 or 4 lunches. That is it. That is the beginning of the 9.5-year gap. If you want the full eating system, not just this piece, I wrote a 60-page guide called The Blue Zone Body Reset. Complete 90-day protocol, shopping lists, recipes, all of it. built specifically for people over 55 who are done guessing what to eat. Description has the link. Now, where were we? Gary Fraser is still at Loma Linda University, still directing the study, still eating walnuts every day. He began this research when most of his current study participants were in their 30s. He watched them age. He watched who died and from what, and at what age. And he has been building the picture for 4 decades. The picture is clear enough now to act on. Subscribe to The Blue Zone Way. Every week, one zone, one practice, one system. One question for the comments. Had you ever heard of TMAO before today? I ask because it is one of the most consequential findings in cardiovascular medicine in the last 20 years, and almost no one outside of research has heard of it. The 9.5 years are already there, waiting.
Of course, your beans, lentils, and things like that, they 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 will last long on your shelf. I mean, when stuff really starts coming down the pipeline or so, not, you may have to do the basics, and at least those beans will stay, good. Canned foods, usually they have, I think, a 2-year shelf life or whatever. But also, too, with those canned foods that Kroger has, their brand, they're low sodium. So that's another thing, too. And basically, what I do is I open up the can, whatever, and I'll pour it in and strain it, and then rinse it with distilled water or that type of thing to get any other excess off, So, there's a lot of little different things that you can do. But that IGF-1, that's some wicked stuff. That is something. And all your dairy products, other than if it's not organic, is loaded with IGF-1, those hormones. And it's rough. It is definitely causing that. Your deli meats, that kind of stuff, colon cancer like you wouldn't believe, and eating, all your deli meats. It's just a fact. So, I thought this video, I came across it, Loma Linda, we have it. We have the message. We have to do it. And we can do it. I mean, if you guys want, you can find that video on YouTube, because I know he went through a lot of the stuff as far as tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. You can do that and just either copy it or whatever if you want to start that. That would be, because it goes quickly. You're only seeing it here or whatever, but you can record that stuff and start off. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you got your flesh meats, it's a fact. I mean, they do get hung up in your colon, because the way our bowels or our digestive tract is set up. It's just the way it goes. I think I've mentioned before, John Wayne, they found like 35 to 40 pounds of fecal matter in his gut when they did his autopsy. Meat, all the buildup. So, with that, any questions? Brother Preston? That's another thing. If you're going to do soy milk, get organic.
Now, what about almond milk?
Almond milk is fine. You even there's oat milk, almond milk, there's coconut milk. Now, I know Dr. Gundry, he used to be out at Loma Linda. I guess he left, some time back. He does have a lot of good points, but he says that coconut milk is better than oat milk and almond milk, is what he says. But almond milk should be fine. As age-wise, age 60, 65 and over, if you're going to do oats, take your oats and soak them for at least 20 minutes to a half hour, age group-wise, okay? Because it will remove, it's a type of acid that's in there. It'll remove that. And just make sure that you cook it the full time, and as far as your oats are concerned. Of course, steel-cut oats are less processed, Your walnuts are fantastic. Who would ever think walnuts, And what does it look like? It looks like the human brain. It's loaded with omega-3s, which is good for the heart. So, yeah, just I would probably, like I said, there was a thing too as far as soy milk for men because of the estrogen levels that soy produce. It's excellent for women, but that now it's a myth now. Men can drink soy milk because it is good for prostate health, because it has isoflavones in it, which is nourishment for the prostate gland. So, like I said, now I've tried the soy milk. Soy milk, it kind of makes me just a little gassy. So I don't know if it's because my system is not, I don't drink it all the time. I do use a lot of almond milk for the most part. So, yeah, just keep those things in mind. It's all about shopping in the grocery store, watching, what you get, even if you go out to restaurants, like the scripture said, our scripture reading, when you sit down, and you can go into restaurants and you can ask that server, what is in your whatever you're getting? What do you use to cook that with? What type of oil are you using? You can ask that. Of course, I think it's like, man, who is this person? I don't know what's in it. I just work here, But it's something it's an option that you can do. Yes, go ahead, sister.
Any type of oats that you would soak, whether it's like the quick oats or whatever, I know you said the steel cut.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's another oats, right?
Yeah, there's steel cut oats, there's Irish oats, there's regular whole oats or rolled oats. The quick oats are more processed. I would stay away from the quick oats. Steel cut, they're like little tiny little nugget. Mm-hmm. It's oats. What they do is they take the steel cut as far as the oat, when it's harvested, they take that steel cut and they smash it. And that makes an oat. It's a process. That's more of a process. So, of course, you leave it, as far as it's less processed. And that's what we all have to watch is process, processed foods. We have tons of them all down the aisles. Totally. They say to stay on the outside perimeter when you're in the grocery store. Don't go down those aisles because all that food is preserved with sodium and so forth. They certain oils, soy oils, and I tell you, that's a lot. Next time or so, I'll discuss about inflammatory foods and non-inflammatory foods. Because I think a lot of us, I've experienced it, a lot of us, we wake up, we're sore, or maybe through the day we're achy. It's inflammation. And that is a bad boy too. That can cause cancer, you know, those kinds of things. So it's getting back to basics, you know. That's pretty much it. There's about a handful, probably about a half cup, quarter cup. About a handful is all you need. Yeah, every day or so, just a handful. Yeah, every day you can do that. Yeah. So, I mean, other nuts you got your walnuts, you got Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts are very high in selenium. That's good for male prostate. Okay. You've got what's the little small pistachios? Those are excellent. You take pistachios, your walnuts, your what's that? Pecans, they're okay. They're okay. They do have a sweetness to them. I like pecans. They do. They're really good, you know. But like I said, walnuts, your pistachios, your Brazil nuts, those are all good for male prostate. And overall, you know, as far as the women are concerned. Yeah, nuts, grains. If you get the pistachios, try to get them with no salt. And already still in the shell where they're half cracked, you've seen that, where you just try to stay away from the ones that are processed because they pull the shell off. So yeah, if you can try to do that, you'll be good. Mm-hmm.
And now you go down to the grocery and get walnuts, and they've got half walnuts. How do they get them out of the shell?
If you guys go to Sam's Club, yeah, that's interesting how they would do that. I know Christmas time, Mom would always buy, you'd have walnuts and nut dish, you know, and you crack them things open. And what's that? The nutcracker. Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm. Now, Sam's Club, where I've been getting my walnuts, they have the big bag for like $9, $10. I think they're 2 pound or whatever, and they are non-GMO. And I researched them, they're fine. There's no pesticides in them, but they don't have the shell or anything on them. And when you buy a good walnut, there's usually a bitter taste, a slight bitter taste when you eat them. That's what you want. If they don't have that slight bitter taste, they're not very potent with the one ingredient that they contain. So, but like I said, Sam's Club, can't beat it. You know, for the price, you go to a grocery store, you're going to pay, smaller bag, you're going to pay a lot. So, you know, as I said.
I had a question. I noticed in the video it didn't really mention a lot about fruits, eating fruits and stuff, or was that their dinner?
I always say fruits and vegetables, don't mix them together. You shouldn't mix them together. You should eat the fruit alone or leave it alone. Okay? I'm sure they would have to have some fruits. And I don't know if it's because of this sugar, the glucose, you know, the fructose that's in the fruit. You know, green grapes are very low in sugar, okay, which is a better way to do that. Bananas are real high in sugar. I would continue, as far as fruits, I would definitely eat my fruits. I just would, but we go back to moderation. You know, that would be the thing. So, yeah, brothers and sisters, we can do this. I tell you, once you start doing this, your mind will automatically start changing. Your taste buds will change. I've seen it happen. You know, there's some things that, you know, my wife, she goes, I don't like, that's nasty. That doesn't taste good, you know. But to me, it's not like that. It goes back to this body, our bodies belong to who? So I think of that. Lord, you died for me. Help me to do what I'm supposed to do, because I belong to you. This is not my own, you know.
There's no way I could eat that much
That's a
food.
lot. You are right. I saw that. You're right. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I would definitely, you can definitely break that down. Oh, yeah. I wonder if that's too much. It's like, whoa, that's not a good temperance. You know, but that biggest meal in the day is at lunch, you know. So what you can eat, that I think they kind of, yeah, I would say so. So I think as long as you get what you need to get, your body will say, I've had enough. Don't indulge. What's the Bible say? That eat thou which is sufficient for you, lest thou vomit. You're eating too much. You get to that point and you're just like, man, I'm stuffed. I feel like you done ate too much. Eat what is sufficient for you.
So what do you hear about cashews? I've heard like 2-3 different things. Like sometimes they're not good. Now they say you're supposed to have to soak them. You know, things like that. So what else have you heard about cashews?
According to Dr. Grundy, he says that cashews are from the poison ivy group. Yeah. So I've never heard that before. You know, so they say cashews are good for prevention of colorectal cancer. I agree with you, the soaking, that could be done. They do have an amount of fat. I would probably, every once in a while, I would do that. That's not going to hurt you, you know. But stick with those main nuts, the walnuts. Walnuts, they're great for the heart, you know. But Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, the problem that we have, he says that you can't just eat, a person can't just eat 1 or 2 nuts. They got to just eat, they consume way too much, you know, and that's what can affect your endothelial lining, that inner lining of your vessels. But as far as course of the day, and I'm telling you, if you walk, when you eat that food, you're going to utilize that. You're going to burn that up. And I don't think people understand that you can sit there and eat, and if you sit down and you don't do anything, you're going to build up. It's a no-brainer. You're going to build up. I mean, now my oldest brother, Rick, he's way overweight. He's just very wide, and he is now doing something about it because he was just diagnosed he's on the border of type 2 diabetes. And I'm surprised he hadn't, earlier. But my mom, mom's like 95 to 97 pounds. But her doctor told her you should stay no more, maybe 102 at the most, as you get older, as we get older. And your digestive system is slowing down as we get older. You just can't process it like we used to, So the lighter meals, that big heavy meal, during the lunch, as the video talked about,
No, thank you for the video because it shows the researchers like Cleveland Clinic. I mean, my company have done some jobs for Cleveland Clinic, so Cleveland Clinic is a good reference, and they have done a lot of research.
Yes. And that's why I like Caldwell Esselstyn. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn The man is unreal. And all his patients that have had major open heart surgery, he puts them all on plant-based, and their vascular systems heal. I've got pictures to prove it. They ones that are moth-eaten, they are healed. They go back. Yes, Emily?
Hold on.
No, I mean, help with the GMOs because I don't know what they are. And going to the grocery store, some foods that didn't have it in there, now they have it. Of course, my granddaughter told me that the GMOs were always there. It's just that they had not been told to print it. Now they've got to print it, and just about everything you pick up has it in it. I refuse to buy anything that's got a GMO in it because I don't know what it is, and I don't know what it does to the body.
It's genetically modified organisms. They are playing God, is what they're doing. You know.
Could it be somebody's finger chopped up?
Oh, that's a good one, Emily.
I'm serious.
I hope not. I feel sorry for people that if they're eating it. Oh my goodness.
You never know.
I would not doubt that. I mean, they say even watermelon, when you buy watermelon, if it don't have the black seeds in it, it's probably produced not correctly. You know, I mean, hybrid. I mean, this stuff is unbelievable. And now we're seeing fake meat. And there are certain captions, if you don't read that package, they put in there and cover it to show that this isn't real meat. You're eating lab-grown meat. And so that's one reason, get away from all of it, you know.
That's true.
Yeah. Now, you take your Kellogg's, their cereal, Post. Now, on the bottom, you can see it contains genetically bioengineered ingredients. The most important thing when you go to the store, read. Look at the package, read the ingredients. You got to do it. Otherwise, and that's why our society is so overweight now, and because of all this food, you know, what they're doing to it.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's man-made. It's not real food. It's man-made.
It's all right, sister. It's all right. Yeah. They're altering it. It's not, it's altered. It's not what back in the day we used to eat. Good homegrown stuff. They're experimenting. They're playing God is what they're doing.
You know, it's like when I was reading where at one time they were mixing the sugar. I don't know if it was during World War II or whenever it was. They were mixing sugar with sawdust. Now, I read that, and I don't doubt that because people do all kinds of things, you know, cutting the food with this, that, and the other thing. So I just was wondering about this GMO business because I check everything, and I just don't buy it because my mind just can't digest it.
Right. Now, just recently, a mother of 2-3 children, you guys have seen the Dave's Killer Bread? Have you seen that? That's supposed to be non-GMO, organic. It's supposed to be the ultimate. This mother found sawdust, chips, in the bread. In the bread. Yep. And I know it was real. And not only that, they found the highest content of pesticides in Dave's Killer Bread. And it's not supposed to be. It's horrible. So, yes.
It just doesn't tell you it's wood. It's cellulose, so.
Yeah.
You know, I don't, and most of the wheat and the stuff you get off, you know, from the grocery stores, all the wheat is GMO. They,
Microplastics in that. But The best bread to get is Ezekiel 4. It's the best bread. That bread was the only one found, and the reason why you have to put it in a refrigerator or when you go to the grocery store, it's in the freezer because there's no preservatives in it. It will go bad. Ezekiel 4:6, I believe, is on the package.
Ezekiel 4:6.
Yeah. Now, you may not like it at first because it's pretty heavy in the sense it's not mealy because they put those dough conditioners in your bread, and that's why it's, you can tolerate it. So that's where you have to change. You have to change your taste buds. And I like to, if I do the bread, I'll semi-toast it, that it has a crispness to it, and I'll take good olive oil and I'll sprinkle that on there. Sometimes a good butter, but the olive oil, I would most mostly, do that. And olive oil, that represents the what? Holy Spirit, right? So, when you buy olive oil, there's so much of it out there, and you got to watch that too. The Patricia Bragg's olive oil, it's expensive, but it is the deal. Because when you taste that, there's like a bitterness in the back of your throat. That's the polyphenol that it has in it. If you get ones that you don't really taste that or have that strong, it's not good. It's just cheap oil. So, yeah. So these are just some things. It's a lot. It's a lot, But, Sister Emily, GMO stuff, just look at the package. And I'll be honest with you, even if it says organic, it may not be, But the thing is, you'll at least have less, pesticides in them. That's what we got to try to do, is try to eliminate as much as we can, in our diets and try to eat the best. And I think the Lord will take care of it. He'll take care of it.
You mentioned a while ago, read the ingredients. I used to do that faithfully on everything I bought. And every year now the printing size gets a little smaller, down to where I got to take it home and get a magnifying glass before I can read it.
I know.
They do that intentionally, I know.
Oh, I'm sure. You're right. Yeah, you're right, because it's kind of hard. Yes.
Dr. Brooks, he preached one time in his sermon. He was talking about the health message, and he said they did a survey. How come more black people die of stomach cancer? All right, and the reason is that what they do, they tested it. They said. They took some greens, collard greens, and washed it with soap, warm water with soap, 15 times, and rinsed it 15 times. Then they took saline solution and washed it 3 times and drained it 1 time. Drained it out, rinsed it out real good. And then in the laboratory, they found pesticide solutions in the greens still. They couldn't get that stuff out of the greens. They couldn't.
Yeah,
so they come
amazing.
To find out, because that was the survey why majority of the percentage of the black people were getting stomach cancer because of eating collard greens or greens. Okay, so yeah.
I totally would agree with it, right. I've mentioned about baking soda when you wash your fruits and your vegetables. Baking soda is probably the safest, right now. They mentioned about white vinegar or whatever, but it'll get into you'll taste it. So I would, stick with the baking soda. As far as our tap water, it's so full of stuff. It's full of stuff. So what I like to do is I usually buy like 6-7 gallons of distilled water where I get it, and I'll rinse it off, sink-wise or whatever, and then I'll turn around and I'll pour. I might be a little over, but I'm doing it. because now you got parasites. Parasites, that's another thing. You can get it from your water, food, even if you go in a restaurant, somebody's hands are not clean, pets, that kind of thing, it parasites. And then there's a parasite that causes type 2 diabetes. And that parasite is taking your beta cells. It's eating your beta cells, and that's what's causing, beginning of your, of type 2 diabetes. So they're finding that out. So I know it gets to a point where, Lord, help us. And he will. He will. We just got to work with him. He'll work with us.
So the key is pray over it and eat it up. So the key is to pray over it and you start eating it.
Yep, that's right. Yep, pray over it and believe, well, as C.D. Brooks said, when those people ask him, well, every creature of God is good, nothing to be refused with thanksgiving. And he said, don't forget my maggot sandwich. He said, if you pray over that, you're going to eat that? I thought, whoa, But yeah, that definitely helps. So we can do it. We can do it. And it's going to happen. We're going to have to. They even say eggs, they have what is called choline in the egg yolk. There's lots of things about that, but eggs are not good for male prostate. It's something. It's really something. So you just have to guide. We have the health message. Let's just stick with that, and we'll be okay. Yeah, we'll be okay.
What do you think about detox?
Detox is great, but you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Because you can hurt yourself. So my favorite, basic, inexpensive is warm lemon water. I would probably do it twice a week.
Okay.
You know.
Well, because the reason why I asked that is that there's 2 or 3 guys there. We visited a home church in near not Thornsville, near Croton, home church. We visited there for a while, and there was 3 guys that did detoxation, and after they got finished, parasites were coming out of them. Oh, yeah. So I did it, and none was coming out of me.
Okay. Maybe
So,
you have none.
but no. I mean, this was years ago. Okay, but I'm saying, I said, why aren't having any parasites come out of me? I have no idea why that's happening, but I don't know. Maybe. But what I'm saying, yeah, they about 3 of them. 3 of them they detoxed, and they said there was parasites. After a while, the parasites started coming out of them.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
Those things are something. You who would even know that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, parasites. I mean, that are living in your body. They say if you itch a lot, or if you're antsy, or what? Now, my wife says I have ADHD. I don't know. I don't know if I'm like, what do you mean I have that? How do I have ADHD? You know, and I know her daughters, they have a beautician shop, and when I went in there to get my hair cut, and she said, Mom, he doesn't even know how to pronounce it. He just says ADH. He forgot the D. So he doesn't know what he has. You know, and it's like, I don't know. Anyway, like I said, and it's probably, let's change it. You guys, beetroot powder, beetroot juice, whatever. So they have supplements out for that. Even fresh beets, you know, it has nitric oxide in them. You know, that is really getting popular, and they're saying it's really very helpful. And I say the reason why people have high blood pressure is because they have such a buildup, and that inner lining that it's making the heart beat harder, and that's why the pressure goes up. So if you can, that nitric oxide is already in your vessels, but you start losing it, and of course if you're not eating correctly, but the beetroot is something that's really been touted about that'll help with nitric oxide, and it'll help, dilate that, So anyway, okay. Is there anything else I can answer? All done? No?
On some foods, they've been having like this big warning label at the bottom about like cancer and reproductive harm. And we were talking about it some time ago, and it had lead in it. Some foods.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Our food it's just not safe anymore. It's just getting to that point. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. The one other thing is your soap, your toothpaste, which I've mentioned, even your laundry detergent has chemicals in it. You wash your clothes, that's going next to your body. And it's going to absorb because the biggest organ of your body is your skin. They do have laundry detergent out there that is safe. It's a little expensive, but I always say spend a little more now, save a lot later. Like I said, that instance with me with the doctor, the office never contacted me back to tell me what my PSA level was. I found it out myself. You can't trust them, I mean, there are trauma, as I've mentioned before. I mean, I've seen it when I was a medic. There's a lot of good things, but it's changing. Brothers and sisters, it's changing. They don't care nothing about us, So that's why I strongly, strongly believe the spirit of prophecy, the health message, we have it. We have it. All right, I'm done. Okay, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you again, Lord, thanking you for this wonderful Sabbath, that we can come together and discuss things. I pray for my brothers and sisters here at Fredericktown Church that you will continue to be with them. You know what they need, Lord. Bless them. I ask that you can still continue to use me to help them and to help others also. I don't know everything, Lord, but I depend on you for knowledge and wisdom because I can't do this on my own. Please be with my brothers and sisters here. And if there's anything that I can help with, Lord, give me a knowledge and wisdom to be able to do that. They are your people. We are your children. You're coming soon, and we want to go home with you soon. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.